She blocked my barn with her Porsche for a yoga retreat, so I took a harvester to it. Her fuzzy dice were the only thing that survived intact. This is the story of how one stubborn HOA queen learned never to get in the way of farm time. The whirling blades on my harvester stopped inches from her cherry red Porsche. 2 tons of roaring, fuel-driven steel loomed over it. The only thing between her rear bumper and my metal vengeance was a set of fuzzy dice dangling from the mirror like they were taunting me. Behind that car, I could hear my cows, hot, starving, trapped, mooing with growing desperation. And in my head, I could still hear her voice from that morning, smug and casual, jingling her keys like it was all a joke. "It's only for a few hours, babe. I need the aesthetic for my yoga retreat." She'd blocked the barn doors, my only access to feed and cool off livestock in the middle of a brutal heat wave, to create a crystal-covered Lululemon paradise. I gripped the wheel of my harvester tighter. The engine purred, and so did my patience. This was war. That morning had been quiet and slow. I was sipping stale coffee on the porch as the sun came up over the fields. Roy, my neighbor, dropped by in his rusted-out pickup to bring a new water tank for the goats. We chatted diesel prices and how Martha's hen was trying to hatch golf balls again. You know, small-town life. Then came the storm cloud in Lululemon. Karen, she was new to town. New enough, at least, to still think she could fix country living with Pinterest boards and essential oils. Nobody actually knew what her husband did. Something with tech and teeth, we think. But she walked around like HOA royalty. She threw a full tantrum at the farmer's market. That day, her jar of Manuka honey went missing. Accused me, in front of half the town, of hoarding it for my animals. I laughed. Big mistake. The goats do love sweets, but that wasn't the point. She stalked off screaming about how I'd regret humbling her in public. I get that she didn't think much of it until I got back to the farm and saw her Porsche, backed up against the barn door, parked so close it was practically spooning the padlock. No note, no message, just that disgusting citrusy air freshener and an arrogant assumption of possession. I called her. No answer. Texted. Nothing. I even trekked out to her yoga retreat, a few fields away, and was intercepted by one of her assistants, who had the appearance of a luxury hotel concierge and the voice of a passive-aggressive hostage negotiator. My cows were stewing in the meantime. It was approaching noon. The barn was shut tight. I had ventilation fans, naturally, but with the doors blocked, airflow wasn't accomplishing a thing. The temperature was climbing. I knew what came next. Heat stress. Possibly death. That's when it got dangerous rather than merely obnoxious. I called the sheriff. They sympathized with me but couldn't legally tow it. Private property, no immediate threat to human life. "You'll need a court order," they said to me. "That'll take a few days." I had hours, so I called Roy. His response? "You still got the big green beast gassed up?" He was talking about my harvester, my pride and joy. I only took it out for harvest time or biblical emergencies. This question mark qualified. I didn't go full Hulk just yet. First, I taped a note on her windshield, a friendly warning. I gave her another hour. I even went downtown, hoping maybe she'd come to her senses. When I returned, I found her sitting under a canvas awning, laughing with a group of influencers dressed like Coachella druids, sipping lemon water like she hadn't inserted herself between 20 creatures in survival. That's when I called Martha. Former attorney turned goat cheese aficionado. She read the local AG code and told me, "You're covered. Emergency livestock access. Just document everything. And wear a nice hat." We set the stage. Roy brought sweet tea and lawn chairs. Martha brought her phone and dry legal wit. Even the part-time cow milking intern showed up, ready to film. I climbed into the harvester, checked the gears, rolled forward, slow. The first tap was gentle, just a nudge. The Porsche creaked. The second push, more deliberate. The hood crumpled like paper. The mirror fell right off. The alarm screamed. People gasped, except Martha, who whispered, "This is better than Netflix." By the time I had room to open the barn doors and let air gush in, the cows were lowing in victory. They didn't care about lawsuits or Porsches. They just wanted to breathe. I parked the harvester, stepped out, surveyed the wreckage. It was carnage, preventable carnage, but not my fault. What I hadn't realized, the intern's video was already blowing up online. And Karen, she hadn't found out yet. She appeared at sunrise. The scream she let out sent the ducks fleeing for cover. She stormed up to the wreckage, phone already in hand, recording, tears pre-required, crocodile level. This man ruined my Porsche. Somebody get my lawyer. She spun around like a live infomercial for victimhood, arms flailing, camera locked on me. I leaned on a fence post, coffee in hand. She marched over, red-faced and breathless. You're going to jail. That car is worth more than this whole farm. I motioned toward the laminated printout tacked to the barn door. Agricultural Law 3.14. Emergency livestock access. Highlighted, sealed in plastic. She read it. Her lips moved. Her brain didn't. And in that moment, the only thing more broken than her Porsche was her ego. The roar of my harvester's motor was a thunderous warning that some lines were not to be crossed. Its steel teeth stopped inches from the rear bumper of a cherry-red Porsche. The only thing between 2 tons of diesel-powered steel and a luxury car was a pair of fuzzy dice suspended from the mirror. My cows were lowing in the barn behind it, hot and hungry, and in my mind's ear I could still hear Karen's syrupy voice from that morning. It's just for a few hours, babe. I need the aesthetic for my yoga retreat. My fist tightened on the steering wheel as I thought about what I was about to do. Something unforgettable, possibly unforgivable, depending which side of the property line you were standing on. Just 12 hours earlier, I was sipping lukewarm coffee on the porch as the sun rose over the cornfields. Roy dropped by in his rust-speckled pickup to deliver a new water tank for the goats. We talked small-town talk, heat wave warnings, diesel fuel prices, Martha's hen laying golf balls by mistake. Then Karen burst into the farmer's market like a Lululemon hurricane. A newcomer to town, she was the HOA royalty type who was using country living as an Instagram backdrop. No one could quite say what her tech CEO husband did, something with AI-powered dental apps. What anyone knew was that Karen had recently taken it upon herself to turn our sleepy town into her vision of a curated wellness retreat. That morning, she threw a tantrum because she couldn't locate a jar of Manuka honey. She accused me of hoarding it for animals. I laughed. The goats do love sweets. But she didn't. Her ear-piercing meltdown in front of half the town concluded with a threat. You'll regret embarrassing me. I didn't think much of it until I got home. Her Porsche was backed up against my barn doors, obscuring them completely. No note, no communication. Just the waft of her citrus air freshener lingering in the air like a bad decision. I called her. Nothing. I texted. Nothing. I even went down to her yoga retreat a few fields away, but one of her personal assistants, all polite hostility, blocked my path. I was pacing, seething. The barn was turning into an oven. The fans were useless without a breeze, and cattle doesn't care about petty drama. I called the sheriff. Since the road was private property, they couldn't tow the truck without a court order. Days, they said. I had hours. I called Roy. His answer was simple and smug. Still got the big green beast? The beast. My reaper. A beast of a machine I only brought out for peak season or biblical emergencies. It was 30 feet away, gassed, purring, ready. Still, I did not rush to vengeance. I taped a polite note to the Porsche, waited another hour, went into town hoping she'd come to her senses. I returned to find her laughing beneath an awning with a group of crystal-waving influencers. I made my decision. I called Martha first, an attorney turned goat cheese guru. You're golden, she said, having looked up local ag laws. Emergency livestock access? Take pictures, document everything, wear a nice hat. Roy, Martha, and a weekend cow milking volunteer appeared with lawn chairs, phones, and sweet tea. I climbed up into the harvester, adjusted the seat, and inched forward, slowly, deliberately. The first contact was a nudge. The Porsche groaned. The second, more persuasive. The hood caved in. The side mirror snapped off. Roy exclaimed, "Holy moly!" Martha exclaimed, "This is better than cable." I kept going until there was hardly space to open the barn doors. Cool air poured in, saving the overheated livestock. They lowed as if they'd just been given ice cream. I turned off the harvester. The Porsche, now luxury origami, was still identifiable enough to be evidence. The intern uploaded the video. The hashtags weren't far behind. Porsche pancake trended for 5 hours. Karen returned the next morning, flip-flops slapping the sidewalk, screaming like a hawk had just made off with her designer purse. She saw the car, screamed, grabbed her phone, began recording. "This guy wrecked my car. Look what he did. He's a menace." I didn't utter a word, just leaned on a fence post sipping coffee. She stormed over to me, camera recording. "You're going to jail. My husband's lawyer will eat you alive." I nodded toward a laminated page taped to the barn. Emergency livestock access code, highlighted legal citations bolded. She scowled at it, blinking, and spat. "That's not a real law." By noon, the media had arrived. Local news went national. A reporter in high heels skirted cow pies to ask for comment. I kept it simple. I opened the barn to rescue animals. I filmed it because I knew she'd sue. Karen did 3 interviews in 24 hours. One in a shirt reading "Spiritual Not Stupid," holding on to a yoga mat like a legal shield. Claimed PTSD from heavy machinery. Said the harvester had emotional energy. The internet disagreed. Memes exploded. One showed the harvester in sunglasses. "Don't block what you can't out-harvest." The sheriff came by with a stack of paperwork from her lawyer. Civil complaint. I gave him the footage, timestamps, weather data, the vet's report. "Off the record," he said. "I'd have done the same thing." Then Karen tried to weaponize the HOA. She lived in the estate next door, ran the HOA like a yoga cult. But her drama dragged the board into the spotlight. Turns out she submitted her HOA complaint with forged signatures. A county clerk noticed the handwriting looked suspiciously uniform. The HOA board bailed fast. One even called me. "We're not backing her. She's on her own." That evening, she posted a video, candlelit. "I forgive the man who vandalized my car. I wish him healing." Then whispered off camera, "I hope his cows get pink eye." The comments roasted her. Court day came. Karen was wearing a neck brace she hadn't had on the day before. Her lawyer looked like he regretted everything. Martha and I had 3 binders: medical records, vet warnings, laws, and video. Karen was suing for emotional trauma, intimidation by farm machinery, and $100,000 in property damage. The judge asked her why she blocked a barn that said, "Do not block." "It was a photo shoot. The light was perfect," she said. We showed the judge everything. Video, cow moos, sheriff's reports. The judge rocked back. "This court is inclined to believe emergency action was warranted." Karen's face twisted. She stormed out, a reporter questioning her as she went. "What do you think about the meme Porsche pancake?" She spat, "Gross invasion of privacy." I thought that was it, but it wasn't. A couple of mornings later, I woke to find a letter slipped under my door. Not delivered. New HOA bylaws. No heavy machinery within 600 feet of their boundary. They replatted overnight. Pushed their boundary right up to my fence. But what Karen didn't know? My grandfather had our farm registered as a protected agricultural zone decades ago, and now it was my turn to fight back. To be continued. The right-of-way access to our property had been legally recorded with the county over 50 years ago by my grandfather. It was grandfathered in permanently, which meant not only could I legally drive equipment down that access lane, but no HOA regulation could override it. However, it was turning into a bureaucratic nightmare. I had to dig up old records, bring in a licensed surveyor, and submit a written objection to the zoning board. Then Roy called with yet more bad news. Karen had filed a rezoning request on my property, zoned it a semi-commercial venture. It would place my farm beneath an avalanche of compliance codes, noise restrictions, and use limitations if passed. Clearly a maneuver to suffocate me in red tape and squeeze me into selling. She was not being petty any longer. This was a siege. Luckily, Roy made a niece work at the zoning office. She scanned Karen's petition and immediately noticed discrepancies. One of the approving signatures belonged to a local official who had died 2 years earlier. Another name was the same as someone who had moved out of state. All of the signatures bore the same ink and handwriting pattern. It was obvious. Karen had forged the documents. We filed a formal complaint with the county ethics board. That apparently initiated a fraud investigation, which placed all HOA-related court actions regarding the petition on hold. Karen began fading from public sight. She no longer showed up at her yoga socials, and her photo was quietly removed from town flyers. The rumor spread that the HOA board members were distancing themselves from her. One of them even came by to apologize, claiming they had had no clue how manipulative she had been. But I wasn't letting my guard down. Karen didn't give up easily. Predictably, she lodged one final complaint with my insurance company, claiming emotional distress and environmental disruption. She even asserted that my harvester had disrupted the natural energy flow of the land and caused spiritual disharmony. My insurance agent laughed so hard that he nearly spilled his coffee. In spite of the victory, I was on my guard. I shut down early. I double-checked all the gates, all the doors. I had a feeling something was brewing. Then one quiet night, I noticed a sleek, unfamiliar car parked at the other end of the road. A man got out, took some shots, made a call, and left. I had a suspicion. The next day, my mailbox was graced with a shiny gold-embossed folder from some entity called Sunwell Living LLC. It was a full proposal to build a high-end wellness resort on the land bordering my southern pasture. They promised nature therapy zones, chakra gardens, silent meditation zones, and something called sound bathing. It all looked glossy, spiritual, and ominous, because the name at the bottom was Richard Palmer, Karen's husband. She had lost with her Porsche, lost in court, lost with the HOA, and now she was making a final play. Surround my property with her influencer commune dream in an effort to choke me out. The blueprints looked professional, but I knew something was off. No other landowner neighbor had been notified. No public notices. When I cross-referenced their zoning records, it was riddled with errors, unsigned plats, erroneous boundary lines, and the worst mistake of all, a phantom survey that claimed their property extended into mine by several feet. Weeks earlier, in expectation of escalation, I had applied for a temporary conservation easement along my southern border. It buffered the property from development and required a 100-foot buffer zone from any construction. In the aftermath of the Porsche incident, the inspector came with speed. We walked the land, spoke of livestock patterns, and he signed off on the easement within 48 hours. Karen's dream retreat now sat squarely in the center of a legal dead zone. Still, I continued to dig. I phoned the Agriculture Extension Office to investigate her water plan. 2 private wells and runoff diversion from my pasture into their proposed retention pond had been included by her. Not only would that be against the law, but it would also flood my irrigation ditch. I compiled drone photographs, historic drainage information, and even enlisted Roy's cousin, who is a licensed hydrologist. We presented a formal report within days indicating that their design broke several state water protection regulations. I CC'd the county board and local press. Headlines exploded. Yoga retreat threatens family farm's water supply. Animal rights groups, rural activists, and even a local veterans group rallied to my cause. Karen tried to spin the story, issuing a press release full of buzzwords like earth alignment and community healing. But it all fell apart when an old video surfaced of her yelling at a chicken next to her Range Rover. That video made late-night TV. Back on the farm, things settled back to normal. The cows were happy, egg sales were booming, and my mailbox was full of letters of support. One neighbor dropped off a pie with a note that read, "For crushing Karens and crops alike." I appreciated the sentiment, though I didn't eat the pie. I'm not stupid. The best part? A certified letter came stating that Sunwell Living had withdrawn their zoning application. No press conference, no farewell tour, just a quiet capitulation. That night, Martha, Roy, and I grilled corn and sipped root beer as we watched the sun set over the pasture. I breathed easy for the first time in months, but the next morning, Roy pointed down the street. In front of the Palmer house was a moving truck. Karen was screaming instructions, hurling boxes like her new start couldn't come fast enough. The guys helping her looked like they regretted every decision they'd ever made. Then I saw it. On the mirror of the harvester was one taped, folded paper. Only 3 lines were handwritten. I underestimated you. You fight dirty but fair. I'm leaving. It was not an apology, though it was a closure. The car was still there, dented and sun-bleached. Karen's luxury Porsche turned rusting eyesore. She taped a note to my harvester's mirror that morning when she left for good. It said, I underestimated you. You fight dirty but fair. I'm leaving. Don't forget to move that car. It's still yours now. I simply stood there staring at it for a long time. It did not feel like triumph. It felt like closure. The Porsche had become more than a car, a monument to hubris and nemesis. I had no idea what I was going to do with it. Sell it? Scrap it? Turn it into a chicken coop? For the moment, it just sat there, symbolic and defiant. Our town had local agriculture week a few days later. Nothing elaborate. Food stalls, kids' games, fresh pies, and a town dinner. Martha had the idea to bring the harvester out and park it at the front of the event. We decorated it with streamers and taped a sign across the front reading, Emergency Response Vehicle. The folks loved it. Children crawled into the seat, making pretend to crush unseen sports cars. Adults chuckled and exchanged their own HOA horror stories. When I gave my speech, I made it brief. I thanked those who supported me and reminded them that farming is not always about livestock or crops. It's about drawing a line when someone tries to bulldoze what is important. As the sun dipped low, Roy handed me a cold drink and said, Think she'll ever come back? I looked out across the fields, golden in the dusk. Maybe, I said, but if she does, she won't be the same. And this land? It'll never be hers again. Things settled down after that. Karen had blown away like a storm finally burning itself out, but normal now had a different flavor. Strangers stopped me on the side of the road just to shake my hand. A kid mailed me a comic book he'd created called The Harvester Avenger, where I annihilated bad guys and saved goats from yoga cults. My inbox was filled with emails from farmers, veterinarians, and ordinary citizens cheering me on. The video of the Porsche slowly being consumed by my machine had gone viral, turned into memes, soundboards, even ringtone clips. I was asked by a reporter if I would run for office. I said yes, thank you. I already had enough animals to feed and didn't want to have to add city council egos to the equation. Merchandise showed up with large letters, "Don't block my barn." Whenever I saw someone wearing one at the feed store, it was a weird kind of justice. And then one morning I noticed a new sign taped to my southern fence line. It read, "Private meditation access, do not disturb." It wasn't mine. I followed the direction it indicated and discovered a primitive trail through the woods, which led to a canvas tent and a small wooden platform. On it was a man wearing linen pants, holding a singing bowl and gazing off into space. I coughed. He lazily opened one eye. "What are you doing on my property?" I asked. "This is a serenity station," he answered peacefully, "part of the new spirituality initiative since the retreat center fell through." "Who approved this?" "Karen," he said, smiling. I told him he had 10 minutes to align his energy into the back of his Prius, or Roy was coming over with the cattle dog, a dog with zero patience for intruders. He packed up in a hurry. It turned out Karen had been quietly selling off her other investments to friends and shell companies. Now these barefoot spiritual scam artists were slithering in under new names and unspecified agendas. I filed a second report with the county and resecured the fence line, but I thought I needed a stronger message. I had the Porsche towed to the south border of my property, the same location where these people tried to bust through. I welded it to a steel plate and attached a hand-painted sign above. "Block this barn. Now guards the land below." Below I painted, "Private property. Keep out. This machine has history." It became a roadside attraction. Someone made a Google pin. The local tourist board tried to make it into a landmark. I said no, but thanked them for trying. It did its job. The Porsche became a chrome scarecrow scaring off anyone who thought they'd try to overstep. Then the last surprise came. A man in a suit and tie showed up at my door. Briefcase. File folder. "I'm here representing Richard Palmer," he said, "Karen's husband. They wish to finalize any loose legalities and offered to settle, a large one. I need only dismantle the Porsche monument and agree not to discuss the matter publicly." I smiled and told him I'd consider it, but I did not want their money. I wanted them to see that not everything could be bought. Not this land, not my peace, not my dignity. I mailed the folder back with one sentence typed on the inside. Keep your check. I've already been paid in full by a town that remembers who fed it when the roads were blocked and the air was too hot to breathe. I walked the boundary of my property that weekend. The pasture shone green, animals grazing, fences tight. The harvester shone beside the barn, a small red ribbon tied to its railing. I never found out who had tied it. Maybe the universe had. I was turning to go in when a family pulled up in a minivan. A boy in the back seat held a toy tractor, his eyes shining with awe. "Can we take a picture in front of the famous barn and the car?" the mom asked. I nodded. As the kid posed beside the Porsche, smiling, I had a thought. Maybe I wasn't a hero, but I stood firm. I said no when others gave in. I drew the line when somebody tried to pave it over. And in a world that rewards noise and foolishness, that still means something. Karen had tried to build her empire on ground she didn't understand, but the earth never forgets. And when you blockade the wrong barn, sometimes the earth strikes back with steel teeth, town laughter, and a whole lot of mooing.